All right, so now that we've color graded a handful of clips from our main timeline in the previous lessons, we've created a good amount of looks over here within our gallery that we can now use to apply to all the individual clips within our timeline here. So the first thing I'm gonna do is apply the grades that we've created for those individual clips to the actual clips within the timeline here. So this is the one that we've saved from this clip. So I'm just gonna apply it to my node tree here. And I'm going to find the other clips that I graded as well in that separate timeline. So this is another one right here. We can apply this grade to it because we saved it in the stills. So I can very quickly just apply that grade. Same with this last one over here. I think this is the grade, yep. And we can also apply it to this clip here too. Middle mouse click, we've applied it very quickly. And now that we have a couple different looks spread out through our timeline, we can apply those grades to other clips. So over here next to this acro clip that we color graded already, we can see that we have 3 other clips that are in the same environment. So in theory, these colors should also look good on those clips as well. So what we could do is create a new group with all of the clips that are shot in this same environment so that we can make adjustments to all of those clips in a similar way. Now, I personally don't like to create groups in this viewing mode. I feel like it could be a bit scattered. So I'll just open up Lightbox over here in the top right, and I'll select all of the clips that were shot in the same environment or that look similar. So all of these acro clips, we can just combine all of those. Maybe there are some other clips that we can add into this group, like this one here of Dan surfing. I feel like it's pretty similar. We got some greens, we got the blue sky. It would probably look good, but we'll leave that separate for now. So what I'll do is right click on this selection of clips that I've made and add it into a new group. I'll call this group acro, click OK, and let's make some other groups too. So why don't we make a surfing group too? Surfing ones look pretty similar. Underwater, it's probably gonna look a bit different. This above water one could go with the surfing, this could go surfing. Let's see, is there anything else here? Surf. Cool. And now a lot of these surf clips, they are in the same environment. You know, we're in the ocean, but some of them, like this one over here, was a different time of day. So I know that if we apply one node tree to all of these selected clips, they're not all gonna look great. We're still gonna have to make adjustments, but creating groups gives you a bit of a head start. So let's right click over here, add into a new group. Let's call this one surf. Okay, and let's create one more for the dirt biking because I feel like the dirt biking clips are actually very similar, a lot of them. This one isn't because it wasn't shot log. It was shot with the original picture profile that comes with the phone. It wasn't with a third-party app. This is another dirt bike clip. Let's see if there's anything else here. Those clips look very similar. Cool, so I'll just create a new group with that as well. Add into new group. We'll call this one DB for dirt bike. And let's close Lightbox. So I've created this acro group, but my node tree is only on the clip level of one of our clips here. So what I can do is just disable this whole node tree by hitting Command D. And let's go to group post clip over here and apply that same node tree over here. So now if we go into our other clips, we have that same look applied. Now in a lot of situations, this might be enough. We might be good to go from here. But in this case, I would say these colors don't look perfect. I don't know what that is, but it looks like we're having some issues over here. So I think really the only thing that I would want to share between all of these clips is the LUT itself. But then all the other adjustments that we've made, like isolating the grass over here or the skin tones in this particular image, it doesn't make sense to copy those over to the other clips because each clip has different subjects, they're positioned differently. Those adjustments just don't make sense to the other clips. So it's really just the LUT that we want to share between all of these clips. Now, because this is a smaller timeline and there's only a handful of clips within each location, it's not that necessary to work in the group pre and post node tree areas. So let's not worry about that for this group of clips. So let's just delete this from the group post clip over here, head back to just the clip level. Let's enable everything. And let's just apply the grade from this clip to the other ones by middle mouse clicking on them. So we can do that. I applied this to the clip level and now we can make individual adjustments. So first of all, I feel like the grass looks a little bit funky to me. I think that's in this node right here. So if I could turn that on and off. We could see how it's affected my skin tone right here. So we're going to want to make some changes to that. So I'm just going to reset that node. And let's see if there's anything else here that needs a bit of work. I feel like it's mainly just the greens. So we're going to want to isolate those greens. And let's also see what these windows here are doing. So we're brightening up the sky here, darkening the bottom. That's all fine. That's pretty minor. Skin tones, let's turn that on and off. See what that looks like. Shift A allows us to see our skin tones. Vector scope shows us skin tones are looking pretty good. So I feel good about that. But let's refine that selection so it's just on the skin tones and not on everything else. I could probably track that as well if I wanted to. But so far, skin tones don't look that bad, so that's not really an issue. I think the only issue in this clip is the greens here. So let's head over to our parallel mixer nodes here. Let's go to this first one. Let's create a selection of the grass, Shift A or Shift H. And I do not want my jacket in this, so I'll hit that minus. Too much. I'm just gonna restart that. Let's try this again. Just selecting the grass area over here. And I'm probably just gonna have to use a window to just select the grass. So first of all, I'll make a window for this bottom area over here because this stays in the frame the entire time. Let's close the gallery. And it's okay to also include the greens that are in the blanket as well. So let's feather that a little bit on the outside. Command T to track it. Let's go to our tracker, track backwards. Cool. Shift A to show us what's going on here. And we're also going to want to affect these greens over here as well. So we'll create another window for those as well. But for now, let's see what we can do to these greens. So let's change the tint a little bit. That's usually how I like to do it. You can also use the curves as well. Modify the colors in there too. That's a bit too much. I really only want to be affecting the greens. So in this case, yeah, so I think let's use the curves for this actually. So we'll go to hue versus hue. Let's select this color range here. So it's about that area. I'll expand this a tiny bit. Let's move this down. That looks good to me. Let's turn that on and off. Command D. Okay, it might be even a little bit too green now. We want it to be minimal. We don't want to push things too much. That looks way better to me. So this is before, this is after. We're just fixing those greens, making them look a bit more realistic. Now we're going to want to do the same thing to the background over here. Shift A. And let's apply another window here. You could probably use a circle. And I want to just focus in on that green area over there. But of course, I do not want to get that jacket in there at all. All right, so that looks good, but we've only affected the grass here. We can see that the grass back here is still not looking too good. So what I'll do is grab another one of these nodes here in the parallel mixer area, and let's use this to select just that range over there. So I'll grab the qualifier. Let's try to make that selection right there. I do not want to select my jacket. Perfect, much better. That's a much better selection. So now I can use a window to refine that selection now. Let's enable it. And I'm going to want to select this area over here. And I do not want to select the rocks. Let's feather this out a bit. That should do the trick. and we can track it if we need to, but this is a stationary shot, so just scrubbing through, there's no need to track it. I can see that we are affecting just the range that we want, and things aren't moving that much. So now what I can do is change the tint. Nice, so much better. Command D, turn that on and off. Looks way better in my opinion. Let's select both of these grass layers, turn them on and off. Cool, we've managed to select just the grass, make it look a lot more realistic. Skin tones, everything else looks good in this. I'm not too fussed about the skin tones. Let's zoom in here. Looks like we might be losing a bit of color in the forehead right here. Just for a second, I'm not worried about that though, that looks good. Cool, so I would say that this clip is pretty much complete. I feel good about it. What we could do is compare both of these clips here. And I'll select selected clips over here. So now we're looking at both of these clips side by side. And I would say that they look pretty good. I think the sky in this clip is a little bit brighter than this one. So I can very easily go over here, select the sky, maybe increase the exposure on the sky as well. A little bit more if I wanted to. We can see it's affecting my knees here, so if I wanted to, I can cut myself out, but it's minor. I'm down to just leave it. Yeah, I think those two clips side by side, they look pretty good together. Now we can move on to the next clip next to this one over here. So we have this third one, and let's just apply what we got over here by middle mouse clicking. Right away, that looks pretty good. We can see that the window that we created up here looks a bit too dark. Let's turn that on and off. I'll just reset this window node here and this top one over here, bottom one. Let's reset that one as well. And I think this whole scene could probably be brightened up a bit. And I feel like the sky might be a bit too dark, maybe a bit too saturated too. So let's see what this node here is doing. Doesn't look like it's doing much, so I'm just gonna reset it. Let's go to our primaries over here and let's just brighten things up a bit. So I could just grab the offset, bring it up a tiny bit. That looks much better to me. Gives it a bit more life. Now let's go ahead and select the sky. So with the qualifier selected, let's go over here, make sure that split screen is turned off. And we want to make sure that qualifier down here is selected. Now Shift A to show me what I'm selecting. And if I was to color grade it like this, we'd get a lot of artifacting. Those are all leftover artifacts. But what we could do is just go here to clean black, bring that up a tiny bit, and clean white, so that we can get a very specific selection on just the sky. Yeah, that looks good to me. Shift A to turn that off. So now we can make changes to just the sky. So maybe we bring down the saturation actually here in our primaries, just a tiny bit. And it is pretty dark, so why don't we brighten it up a tiny bit too? I think it's because we were using an ND on the phone. But we could see that we have a bit of artifacting left over here. Those are the parts of the image that have not been affected. So Shift A to turn that back on. Let's go back to our qualifier. I'll click the plus over there and just add that in. Add this in over here too, just to broaden our selection. Make sure that we're selecting all of the sky color range. So up there too. We're gonna get a bit of the hair in that, but that's totally fine. The hair is black. We're barely even gonna notice anything. Cool, Shift A, nice. We refined our selection so that we're not getting any more of that artifacting left. Now, skin tones, let's see what's going on with our skin tones. So let's head over to the skin tones node over here, Shift A or Shift H to isolate them. Let's take a look at our vector scope. It looks like we're pretty dialed, but things do look pretty orange to me, which is fine, I'm just gonna refine the selection a bit more. Let's add a bit more of the skin, kind of everything really. And let's see what we could do here to make things look a bit more realistic. The sun was hitting the subject here, so it's fine. I'm just gonna play around with these sliders a tiny bit just to see if we can make things look a little better. So we can see we're bringing down the intensity of the skin tones. So before, if we look at the vector scope, this is what it was at originally. It was a bit longer, just like that. So that just shows it was more saturated. And the change that we just made, we brought those colors down closer to the center of the vector scope here, just making them a little bit less intense. But we can see that we've also created that like little purple edge there too. So let's see what that looks like when we turn highlight off. So we can see, yeah, we have a bit of that purple fringing on the edges there. Another thing that we should do is actually just blur out the edge a tiny bit too, so that our adjustments don't look as obvious. Tiny bit there. I think I brought down our skin tones way too much. It's okay for it to be a bit more on the orange side. I wanted to bring it down a tad. Slight amount. If I zoom in, we can see the difference it makes. This is original, this is afterwards. And we can see things are looking a bit pink too, so why don't we bring the tint down a tiny bit too? Not too much. Cool, and that just makes the skin tones look a bit more realistic. It's a pretty simple one. If we compare it to the previous clip over here, we go to split screen, selected clips. I would say that those look pretty good. Obviously the sky in this clip is white, but that's just because of the angle of the camera. With this one, we're looking straight up at the sky. I want it to be blue. I want to show that blue color in it. I guess one thing that I'm not liking right now is I feel like Chelsea's face and skin is a bit too dark. So let's go to skin tones, just brighten it up a tiny bit. It's great because we've made that skin tone selection. We can just very quickly and easily make any adjustments that we want to just that clip. That looks good to me. Let's turn that on and off. Yeah, much better. I like that a lot more. Gives it a bit more pop. So I'm stoked with that. So already we've gone through 3 clips over here, and let's apply that same grade to this clip over here. Now we need to remember that this is a fusion clip over here. So we are working with the transition here. So we're going from one environment to another environment. Thankfully, both of these environments are fairly similar, and I already know that the LUT that we have applied to the previous scene is going to work well with this next scene as well. So let's just apply it. But we can see that this image here, this clip of Chelsea and me in this grass field, it's lit differently. It's like different lighting. The quality isn't as good. It's darker. I would say that this is like where the phone wasn't performing as well, but I still wanted to use this clip a lot, obviously, because it was perfect for this transition. So I still used it, but let's see what this looks like. So I could apply any of these to this. Right off the bat, looks pretty intense to me. Let's see what these selections are here. We don't need this one over here, so we're going to reset this. We're also going to reset this one. And yeah, things are looking pretty intense. Let's go to our LUT. Let's bring down the output a lot. I'm thinking maybe like 0.2 or so. And we can see we're getting a little bit of artifacting here. I think that that is from the keyer that we used within Fusion. So I would probably want to go back in there and refine my key a little bit more just to make sure that none of this artifacting is spilling through. It wasn't as evident before because there was no color grade. That's one thing that you're going to want to be mindful of whenever you're doing any kind of Fusion work, is to actually apply the grade first, which we have the ability to do so up here. We can actually add grades. We can add LUTs over top of our preview over here so that we can get like a final output to see what things look like. But even in this clip without the grade, we can see that we are still getting a bit of artifacting over here, and adding a color grade to this just accentuates it even more, makes that even more obvious. So the more time that you spend on your keying, the better of a result you will get. So the second clip looks good to me. I would say things look a little bit too pink for me. So why don't we go into our primaries? Let's try to fix this, bring that down just a tiny bit. literally the smallest amount. And let's go back into our first clip. Yeah, and over here we can see the mask wasn't the cleanest. It was not the cleanest mask. So I could definitely go back into my Fusion clip and make some fixes on that transition as well. Now, this is a perfect example of where we would want to keyframe our grade, right? So I'll open up my keyframe editor over here just so I'm ready to make any changes in case I want to. And I'll just extend this over here. So in case I want to, keyframe the grade from this area to this area, I can. I do like the way that things look in the second scene here. But the first one, things look a bit off. So what I'll do is I'll set keyframes at this point in my timeline here. So I'll just add a dynamic keyframe over here to all. So from this point forwards, I'm happy with those grades, but anything before this, so maybe like actually up to here, I'll add another static keyframe. I'll add another dynamic keyframe here. It's what's going on over here that I would want changed. So probably I'll just move this over here. So everything from about here to this point here. So now I can go ahead, make any of the changes that I want at this stage in my timeline. So let's play around with the primaries first. I feel like I could probably warm things up a bit. Let's go into our primaries here. I think it's a bit too cool. I just want to warm things up tiny bit, tiny bit. That looks good to me. And keep in mind, this is a very fast clip. We only see it for about a second. But of course, we want to make sure that it matches with the other clip. So I'm going to select this other clip here before it. And I just want to split screen, take a look at things. Now, obviously, the grass is a much different color. It's a lot yellower. So let's try to fix that. I'm not too sure how well that's going to work. So I'm going to go over to my parallel mixer nodes. I'm going to make a selection of my grass. I'm going to take off split screen view and enable the qualifier. Let's select the grass over here, Shift A. I got to make sure that I have my picker here selected, Shift A, so I can select just the grass. And I do not want to get any of the skin tones. I really want just the grass. So let's refine the selection. Let's change the hue. I do not want any of that. I really want just the grass. Let's clean black a bit. Clean white. Nice. Blur things out a teensy bit. Cool. That's a good selection of the grass there. And Shift A to turn that off. Turn off highlight. And let me try to just bring the tint of the grass down a tiny bit, just a teensy bit. That looks good. Already that looks better to me. Let's check split screen and select this clip here. Much better, much better. So with that node selected, Command D to turn it on and off. Yeah, way better, way better. I'm really liking that. And I'm happy with the tones of everything else. I know that this isn't the most like exciting shot, in terms of composition and stuff, but the reason I used it was because she kicked the camera there. And we move into our next environment over here. I do not know why it is showing me the edge over here in split screen view. I've actually never had that happen before. That's interesting. Cool. But when I'm not in split screen view, it doesn't show me that. So it might be a bit of a glitch or something. But cool. Yeah, I feel really good about those greens now. And yeah, this shot looks pretty good to me. I think what I would do is probably just go back into Fusion, play around with the delta keyer even more at this stage, and just really pay attention to the artifacting over here to make sure that I'm eliminating it. There's none of that remaining, because obviously once we've applied the color grade, it just intensifies it, makes it very evident. So playing around with the delta key here just to remove any of that last artifacting. But yeah, that looks good to me.